Episode 1. The hardest thing to see. Narration begins. 3 documents. 1 question. What can you not survive violating? The first names it. The second audits it. The third builds within it. The work is done. This is not the argument. The argument is elsewhere, long and angry and full of numbers. It is called poisus, the bringing forth. This is not the repair. The repair is also elsewhere, clay and sun and gravity, a village becoming what it builds. It is called gigniamenon, the becoming. This is the logos. Logos is the ancient term for the underlying structure. Heraclitus said, although the logos is shared, most people live as if they had a private understanding. They prefer their stories. They prefer their maps. The logos does not argue. It does not persuade. It simply is. And when you violate it, the substrate presents its bill. The hardest thing to see is what you're standing on. Not because it's hidden. Because it's under everything. And you've learned not to look down. Every system has layers. The top layers are what we argue about. Politics, ideology, brands, narratives. The bottom layer is what we obey. This document contains a set of questions for identifying that bottom layer. 10 rules. A handful of tests. You take them into a farm, a factory, a nation. You ask, what can you not survive violating? That is the substrate. That is the logos made visible. The ancestors knew this. They called it sin. They called it taboo. They wrapped it in a narrative because that was the only transmission layer that survived. We will find them at the end of this series. Their wisdom unwrapped. Their gods revealed as physics. Their rituals revealed as maintenance. This document asks you to look down. What you do with what you see is not the document's concern. The document's work is done. What is a substrate? A substrate is any layer whose failure produces immediate, non-negotiable degradation of survival, output, or system stability, independent of belief, intent, or interpretation. A substrate cannot be argued with. It cannot be bypassed cheaply. It enforces behavior through cost, not persuasion. There are 3 kinds of layers in any system. Primary substrate. Things whose failure produces immediate collapse. Food, water, energy, shelter, land access, biological health, skilled trades. Encoded substrate. Narratives or institutions that directly control access to the primary substrate. Land stories that determine who farms. Kinship systems that determine who drinks. Taboos that limit how much you can take. Mediation layer. Interpretive, replaceable, delay-inducing structures. What we argue about. What we mistake for the thing itself. Ideology. Legitimacy narratives. GDP. Currency. Rule 1. Failure immediacy test. If this layer fails, does the system degrade before a political, moral, or interpretive response is possible? If yes, candidate substrate. If no, mediation layer. Gravity. You jump from a roof. Physics enforces before you reconsider. That's a substrate. Soil health. When it fails, crops fail this season. No policy restores it in time. That's a substrate. Kinship water rights. The rule is narrative. The consequence is physical. If the clan excludes you, you lose water access. Your belief about kinship changes nothing. The well is dry for you before appeal, argument, or aid arrives. That's encoded substrate. GDP decline. A recession is painful. But the system degrades after policy can respond stimulus, rate cuts, bailouts. There is time to talk. That's mediation. The 2021 Colonial Pipeline attack. 5 days from cyberattack to national panic. No task force could restore fuel faster than panic emptied stations. The 2022 baby formula shortage. A single plant shut down emptied shelves nationwide in weeks. No policy response could outrun empty stomachs. Speed reveals dependency. When degradation arrives before response is possible, you have found something you cannot manage, only obey. Institutions are built around what they have time to discuss. Substrates of what discussion cannot outrun. Why this matters? We have built the most complex mediation layers in human history. We have more narratives, more ideologies, more metrics, more symbols, more arguments than any civilization before us. And we have learned, collectively, to look anywhere but down. GDP can rise while a nation starves. Approval ratings can climb while infrastructure crumbles. Legal definitions can remain satisfied while the thing itself degrades. The map is not the territory. The diagnosis is not the disease. The story is not the substrate. But here's what the ancestors knew that we've forgotten. The substrate always bills eventually. You can ignore the soil. You can call it dirt. You can treat it as a medium for extracting profit. The soil does not argue. It just delivers less. You can ignore the skilled trades. You can call them labor. You can treat them as replaceable. The trades do not argue. They just retire, and the systems they maintained fail. You can ignore the water. You can call it a resource. You can treat it as infinite. The water does not argue. It just stops coming. The hardest thing to see is what you're standing on. What this series will do. 10 rules. 3 traditions. 1 question. The Greeks, who gave us the Logos and the physician's oath. The Chinese, who gave us the Tao and the cost of forcing. The Hebrews, who gave us the prophet tested and the land that vomits out its inhabitants. 1 question to carry with you through every episode. What can you not survive violating? That is the substrate. That is the Logos made visible. Next, the diagnostic framework. 10 rules for detecting what actually constrains. Narration ends.